What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck with you on a Friday episode with a big weekend of football coming up. Buck, what are you looking forward to the most when we get to the college championship games? We got some great matchups starting tonight with what is really a play-in game, right? We've got UNLV, Boise State. They're going to tangle here to see who gets a shot there. We got Tulane and Army. You're an Army guy, so I know where you stand there. But the other championship games, we've got Iowa State, Arizona State in the Big 12, Georgia, Texas, the rematch there in the SEC, Penn State, Oregon, number 1 versus 3 for the Big 10, and then Clemson, SMU, which will have a huge impact on how that game goes down in terms of is there another team that pops in there from the SEC potentially?
Okay, let's start about the prelims. Let's talk about the other ones. And so what I love about championship games, it gives teams from conferences that you may not see every week, depending on how your Saturday breaks down, it gives you an opportunity to see those teams. So in watching Tulane take on Army, that'll be a great opportunity to see the American. The Mountain West, when you look at UNLV and Boise and how they get down, 2 coaches that have done a really, really good job of putting their teams in position. Barry Odom, who has really done a great job at UNLV, getting them off the mat. You remember how UNLV was struggling a few years ago? Yeah. From, like, he used to be at Missouri, comes to UNLV, gets them going. And then, look, Boise with the runner, Genty, and the way that Boise has always been able to give people problems, that's going to be fabulous. Tulane is a game to watch because the coach, Summerall, is one of the hottest names that you're going to hear on the circuit. What he's been able to do to get them doing. First, he was at Troy, got them successfully up and going. You think about the job that he's doing in Tulane. He is someone, if he wants to, he's going to have a big job taking that on. And so I'm fascinated by watching those games. But DJ, you know, the old scout in me is, we're looking at the main dish. You just think about the Big Ten game and the SEC game and the amount of players that we're going to talk about in the run up to the draft that are going to participate in those games. How could you not want to see those games and those teams play it out?
I'm so fired up, man. And like, to me, this is the cool part about the realignment. I know a lot of people had issues with it, and it got rid of a lot of tradition and all those things. I get all that. But when I get a chance to see, Penn State, for example, USC didn't have a great year this year, but they've got NFL guys. So you get to see Penn State, USC. I get to see Penn State, Ohio State. Buck, to me, I mean, the evaluation opportunities that you have with all these multiple games, like, for example, when you just look at Oregon, man, I got to see Oregon versus Michigan. Oregon versus Ohio State is a great tape to watch. Now I see Oregon versus Penn State. Like, come on, man. Like, this is going to make scouting easier. Now, all our buddies don't want to hear that, but it's true. Like, what good games you want to watch? Well, I got 7 to choose from with the amount of quality opponents.
Well, DJ, I would tell you, going all the way back to when I was working, like, I always would kind of work backwards. Like, some guys work from the end of the year back, but I always prefer to look at rivalry games. I want to see people in championship games, and then anything that had to do with the playoffs, because those games are going to have the energy and the personnel that's most like what we're going to see on Sundays in the NFL. To have an opportunity to watch these guys play these meaningful games where stakes are on the line, it'll give you like a little sneak peek behind the curtain on how they handle pressure, how they handle the stage and the big moment. But more importantly, how do they handle playing someone that is at their level or maybe even better than level for the first time that they've had to see someone like that this year? To me, there's a lot that you can bake out about that. And I'm not saying that I weight these games heavier than most, but they have significance if you show up in these games. To me, I love it. I love having opportunities to see good on good, and this is a great weekend to see good on good.
Yeah. Plus, now we get to the playoffs, so you're going to get, for some of these teams, 2 or 3 more quality opponent games to break down. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. I do think one of the unintended consequences is going to be, I think you're going to see, I hope this isn't the case, but it stands to reason, we're going to see some limited all-star game participation with teams that are in the playoff. That's just it's too long of a run, man. They need a break. No. And you're probably even going to see it drift into the combine a little bit, where you see some people that say, look, I'm just beaten down from a 17 game season here, 16 games, whatever they're playing.
And I think we're on the verge of seeing some of that participation wane a little bit with the combine anyway. But for all-star games, here's what will happen, though. Some of those guys that have these extended runs, it'll create opportunities for other guys to get elevated, and they'll have a chance to play up. and we'll get a chance to evaluate those guys. And so our evaluations may be more comprehensive for the entire draft class because we get to see some guys on a bigger stage. The one thing that we will talk about, and I know we'll have Jim Nagy on soon when we talk about the reveal for the Senior Bowl and those things. Hopefully we can get more full participation at these All-Star games, meaning when you go and show up, you not only do the practices, but can we get you to play in the game too? Like, can we get you to fully participate in the entire week instead of having guys who are swapped in on Friday playing these games? So hopefully we'll get all that taken care of because it'd be nice to see these guys play, even though the game is a little watered down than what a real game would be. You still want to see them compete and compete for fun.
Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for them during that week to be able to be around and interact with all the different teams as well. So hopefully we do get, if not some of these guys, some opportunities for other players to jump in that mix and take advantage of that opportunity. Buck, let's take a quick timeout, and we come back. I want to hit you on a couple teams. Bills, Vikings. These are teams that, if you look at where they're situated right now, having phenomenal seasons. I feel like we've talked about a lot of those other teams up there in that top 5, top 6 in the NFL right now. But I feel like these two, in terms of the roster build, we haven't given them much attention. So I want to do that right after this. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills, Buck. And it's, much has been made about the exodus of some players, but I want to spend some time on your buddy and my buddy, Bean, and what he's done of building up this roster here. Because if you go back and look at some drafts, I want to use this as a starting point here. Let's go back to 2020. Okay. It's a COVID draft. That's AJ Epinesa is the one that's their first pick in that draft. So that's 2020. You go to 21, Gregory Rousseau. So they go back-to-back defensive picks. Spencer Brown was a third-round pick that year. So that's the foundation. We'll get to these next 3 years here in a second. But I think whenever you see a good team, you can see I don't want to say the light switch draft, but there's literally there's a line of scrimmage draft in there somewhere, and they sandwiched them back to back.
Yeah, Buffalo Bills are really interesting because I feel like they really have settled in. One, the coach is everything, right? We talk about tough teams needing a tough head coach. Sean McDermott has a level of toughness that you feel from him, and you also see in his teams. If you're going to be a line of scrimmage team, that has to be something that is demanded. That has to be something that you value, being able to dominate the game at the point of attack. And you also crave a little physicality from your opponents. When I think about Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane and their experiences together, they've certainly come around to building a team, to me, that is perfect for Western New York. When you think about the area and where they play in and the conditions that you have to deal with, wind, snow, rain, all of that, DJ, you have to be able to control the line of scrimmage because it can't always be a finesse game in Buffalo. They've done that, and I'll say they've done a better job of building a team that can handle the various conditions in Buffalo. That's why they're a tougher team. I think, look, they may not be as talented as they once were, but I think they're more complete, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, no, I think it absolutely is the case. You try and find the weak link on this team, it's tough to find it. They're solid all the way across the board, and they have an elite quarterback. So all those things kind of work together. I want to go through a couple of these more recent drafts here. So those were 20 and 21. You get to 22, Khair Elam, they go early. James Cook, obviously, he's been a really good player for them. Khalil Shakir has been a real emerging talent for them. Christian Benford, that's 22, 23. Dalton Kincaid, who when he's been out there and healthy, he's been good. They go Cyrus Torrance, Dorian Williams right after that. And then this last year, Keon Coleman, Ray Davis, who we've seen get in the mix here and do some good things. Just a couple of the pieces that they have there. Cole Bishop in the next round is going to be a really, really good player. So it's interesting to see. I always just try and find that draft or those two drafts where they kind of fortify the trenches, and then you can build out from there.
You can build out from there. The other thing, DJ, they fit who they are from a cultural standpoint. They made a concerted effort to make sure that all the guys fit well like puzzle pieces. Not saying that some of the guys that are no longer there were outcast, but they wanted to make sure that everyone is kind of on the same page when it comes to the way the team operates, the team wants to go forward. And Josh Allen is the alpha. Josh Allen is the franchise quarterback. And as he's kind of evolved into being not only the quintessential QB1, but the leader, the unquestioned leader of the team, I think the guys in the locker room complement who he is and his personality. And it's not often talked about, but all those things certainly matter because as he goes, this team goes, and they've done a really good job of putting a supporting cast around him.
Yeah, no doubt. He's the center of that universe, and everything kind of revolves around him. But I do think they've done a really good job, and I don't think there's a lot of splash in there. Even like the splashy positions, like Khalil Shakir, kind of a lunch pail guy. He just kind of fits and matches, like you were saying, the area and where they play and how they play and who they want to be. So, not a lot of flash across the board. Just a lot of good, solid football players. Not a lot of weaknesses as you go through that roster. It's been impressive how they've done it. How about the Minnesota Vikings, Buck? Let's get over to them, and let's go back to their last few drafts. Let's start in 2020 with them as well. Justin Jefferson, I think we could say that was definitely a home run with what they're able to accomplish there. He's their first pick in 20. You go to 21, Christian Darrisaw, who, by the way, don't forget he's out, man. If he doesn't get hurt, I think I might be even more bullish on this 10-2 team and what they could accomplish. But absolutely a stud here. So you go through those kind of like their top picks. Let's go through the next couple years. So you get Ed Ingram in 22, Samoa. So like that 22 draft, Ty Chandler's been a piece for him. That one, not as, Lewis Seen, no. So they haven't had as big of an impact from that group, but then they come back in 23. Jordan Addison, obviously the top of that list and the impact he's made. And then this year, interesting with what they've been able to accomplish. JJ, we won't see him yet. Dallas Turner showed promise, so we're excited to see what he's going to be going forward. But they kind of started with you kind of look at Justin Jefferson as the difference maker that kind of started their climb.
Yeah, they've done it differently, right? So they're able to get difference makers, and they made sure that they are loaded on offense. They are a quarterback-friendly team, and the roster is constructed to elevate the quarterback. Because remember, at the time when they bring in Justin Jefferson, whatever, they have Kirk Cousins. And so the draft was about how can we elevate the quarterback, and however you categorize Kirk Cousins in. Is he a high-end Trello or low-end truck, whatever that was, they wanted to make sure that they had people around him that could elevate his game. And what that has done, it has allowed them to also play with a guy like a Sam Darnold, who is a reclamation project, but still have success. It's interesting. It's an interesting team build model. But I'll say this, I feel like the Vikings are slept on. They don't get enough conversation about their Super Bowl potential. And maybe it's because of the way that they play, or maybe because people don't believe fully in the quarterback. But when I look at this team play and I look at how they've been stacking wins, to me, they have title contender written all over them. And when you think about the coaching combination, Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores, with the roster that they have, it's hard to find a big weakness in the Minnesota Vikings.
Interesting, because we're obviously going to focus heavy on draft with our background and what we love. They only have 3 defensive starters that were original draft picks as we stand right now. The rest of them are all trades or free agents. Jonathan Bullard came from Atlanta, Harrison Phillips from Buffalo, Jerry Tillery from Vegas. Greenard was a big signing for them out of the Texans. Blake Cashman, same. Grugier Hill, he's from Carolina. Van Ginkel of Miami, who's been awesome. Byron Murphy from Arizona. Gilmore from Dallas. I mean, darn, it's 8 of their 11 right there that are, guys that they, found outside of the draft.
Okay, so if you think about outside of the draft, like older players, maybe you need an older player, a smarter player to be able to deal with what Brian Flores wants to do on defense. If we talk about this, is when I look at them, I call them a high IQ defense because they do so much. It's hard to play someone who's not a quick processor or doesn't have the experience to be able to make changes on the fly. Maybe they have a clear understanding on how they want to play. Our young guys can go on offense. We need older guys on defense, or we need older guys right now on defense until we can develop the back half of our roster with defensive guys that can understand and grow within the system.
Now, Ivan Pace not counted in there as a draft pick who has been phenomenal, but he's hurt right now. So you put him off to the side, but that is a home run draft pick for them. But there's more than one way to do it is what I'm getting at. And they've done it with a lot of veteran players who have, again, I think there's 2 sides of the teaching thing from a coach. There's guys that can bring in young players and get them better. And then there's also guys who are able to find a little bit of that like fountain of youth for some of the older players who have the ability to mask maybe some of their deficiencies that show with age, and maybe promote and feature the things they can still do really well. I think that's part of the teaching process as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, like it is a big part of the teaching process. We talk about matching, mentoring, all of those things, like setting those examples in place. And good teams do that. When you think about like your good college teams, they kind of have that succession plan in place. They have those things, those guys that you can pattern your game after and model how this should look, and you continue to pass the tradition down. Maybe this is a pro way of being able to do it where you're stockpiling and backstopping old with young and be able to grow and eventually hand the baton down to guys that are better ready for it in a year or two.
No doubt. I do want to go behind the curtain before we wrap it up here. This is the time of year, as we sit here, first week of December. The teams I was with, Buck, this was always our initial meeting, our first draft meeting of the year. So was that the same for the teams you were with?
Yeah, this is the week. This is the week everyone will fly into the facility. They'll put you up. You'll have meetings over the course, the latter part of the week, leading to a weekend. You'll go to the game, and then everyone flies out on Monday. So it gives you an opportunity to go through those backboard meetings while also seeing your team to give you a point of reference in terms of what's playing in the league. Might have the holiday party around that time. So it kind of brings you back to the organization. So you don't feel like you're the lone wolf, but yeah, this is the time.
Yeah, usually, most organizations will fly out your girlfriend, your wife, whatever, to come out with you, and then you'll be there. We wouldn't do group meetings. We would do one-on-ones. So, you knew you had your time. So, throughout the 3-day weekend, it was like, okay, I knew at 10:20 was my day to go in there. So you'd sit in there with your college director, maybe your over-the-top guys, maybe your personnel director. So you'd sit in there, and what they want to do is say, okay, just give it your top 30 players from your area that you saw this year. And we would go through each one and hey, these are the alerts. Like there's some character stuff we need to dig as we get to these all-star games. So then they would make a note, okay, we need to do more homework in this area. This guy had an injury, didn't really get the full story on it, but we need to find out more about what was wrong there. Whatever, any kind of concern you might have that would get highlighted there. Any other holes that you needed to get filled in, you would mention that. But you'd go through those 30. So then it was by your grade. So then that would be the first time coming out of these meetings where a draft board would be together. Now, there'll be a lot of names that are side by side. So in other words, like our scout in the Southeast had these 3 6'4" corners that he gave 6'4s to. Our scout in the West had 1 6'4" corner. So we have kind of these, as we like to say, these little clusters. So you're starting to create these little clusters. This is the very beginning part of that process. And that's how this whole thing gets started.
It's so fascinating to me to hear you talk about doing one-on-one meetings when I've never participated in a meeting setup that was like that. It was always group discussions. Everyone was in the room. You would read your report. And during this time of year, it might just be background reports. So you're reading the background, you're reading the character, you're doing those things, you're flagging and making notes on the guys that we got to make sure that we talk to at All-Star games, talk to at the Combine. We need to make sure that we have things ready for them. Some teams would opt for a little discussion about playing time performance, how they project, tentatively talk about the board and those things. But a lot of times, for me, we wouldn't have those discussions until the meeting right before the Combine. Because right before the Combine,
that's the big one.
Dig in, that's the big one. But this is a little tasty cake. Who do we need to see? Where do we need to get to? Bowl games, because remember back then we would still go to bowl games to see guys. Yeah. So it's an opportunity to kind of get the assignments of, hey, who are the guys that we need to get eyeballs on? Because maybe we didn't see enough of them early in the fall.
So the reason why we would do the one-on-ones is we would not get the grades. We were not to discuss whatever grades we had on players. So then I would get cross checks. And so some of it would be, hey, like we're going to go to these 3 bowl games, so throughout there's a couple by where you live and then maybe one you might have to get out to, but these 3 bowl games, that's 6 teams. So all the prospects on those 6 teams, you're going to cross check those. And then maybe other couple guys that they want you to do. Well, I didn't sit in a room. I don't want to hear what the report is from somebody else or what his grade is. I don't want to be independent. I want to be able to come up with my own opinion. So you would do that. And then that was the first round of, cross checks. The next round of cross checks was positional. So I always had quarterbacks, every scout has a position that they would always be assigned. And then that was kind of the next wave of it. But the first get together meeting where we would actually read our summaries and go over the grades on the players was that one right before the combine.
Okay, so in speaking of that, like I've told you about this arduous process that we went through first when I was in Seattle, where we would show up maybe 3 weeks before the combine and DJ from
God bless you guys.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're watching tape nonstop. And the way that we did it was different than most teams. So you and I are area scouts. We have everybody, all the grades come in. And so let's just say we start at the offensive tackles. And on the board, all the gradable guys that had a draftable grade at offensive tackle are listed in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
And grab a coffee.
Get comfortable.
Turn off the light. We're going to watch tape. And DJ, as a group, we're going to watch, I wouldn't say 3-4 games, but we're going to watch parts of 3 games on every player. Now, the hard part in that is, man, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of grind. I would say the benefit in that as a scout, I got a chance to see what is playing in the Southeast.
Yeah.
So even though I've been on the West, I now get a chance to see what a first-round tackle looks like in the SEC. So what it does is it trains my eyes to have a better appreciation for what the standards should be. And so when I look at my guy at Boise, how do I think he compares to what I could see in the Southeast of Alabama? He's really good out here, but maybe I won't give him that first-round grade. Maybe I give him a second-round grade to get him in the discussion, and then we can talk about that. So it was us working through that process on film, but early we were talking about all the character stuff and those things in December.
So back to the group tape thing. Would you guys discuss? Would that be open mic during the tape?
100% open mic. But now here's what I would say.
Does that not lead to groupthink though?
It can if you're not strong, if you're not convicted. It can. You can have that uneasy position if you've given a grade. Yeah. No one knows what your grade is. Yeah. So the grade hasn't been revealed. But imagine, God, who is the linebacker? There was a linebacker that played at Fresno. It was my first year scouting. It may have been like Orlando Huff or something. And it's like my first year, you go back those first year where you slap a whopper. I might have slapped a big grade. And then I remember watching the tape and being like, ooh, this is not. Yeah. This is not. I thought he was. Come on, man, make a play.
I've been known to love up a Cal Poly player or two
early on. But the group think wouldn't necessarily. I think it would just have healthy discussions. And then my thing would be if it's a player that you're really big on and you feel like everyone isn't as high, to be like, hey, let's look at this tape. Here's what I saw. This is why I'm so big. Let's compare and contrast to whatever. There is some danger in groupthink, but I just love the exposure to being able to see outside. So in lieu of cross-checking, that's what we did. So I never had to travel outside my area. I could stay in my area the entire fall, but I had an opportunity to see everybody, and I would make notes. And I felt like it eventually made me a better scout overall because I had a chance to kind of see what else is out there in different parts of the country.
And it's a lot more efficient now. Back in the day, we had beta tapes. There was no breaking it up by playtime. Now if you're going to do a pass rusher who in a game where the defense had 84 snaps, he might have played 50 snaps. Well, you just saved yourself time having to watch 34, having to zip through 34 snaps, figuring out where the heck he is on the field when he's not out there. So it's a lot more efficient now. And as with receivers, you could just hum through the targets.
You can just look. It's a much cleaner process all around. Like DJ, just from watching tape, like before, like we're dating ourselves, but way back when we couldn't even really watch tape on the computer back then. Like now,
no,
everything. Like you know what I mean? You had to go and get a thing. Now you have access to whatever. You can whiz through and breeze through a bunch of different things. And with some of the technology that you have in terms of being able to categorize stuff, I want to see the pass rushes. I want to see this. I want to see that. Like I won't say it's a lot easier.
Oh, man.
But it's a much more efficient process.
Do you remember you had your beta deck in your hotel room at the meetings? And so you'd go like the night before, you'd be like, all right, I know we're going to talk about this guy tomorrow. Let me go rewatch. And for those who know beta tape, each half was its own tape on one side of the ball. So if I'm going to watch if I want to watch, Alabama, Auburn. I've got 2 tapes for that. And I got oh man, you got a box, you got a big old box full with all your tapes.
So not only that, but with the Carolina Panthers, we had the wall. So there was a catalog where you had to go, okay, 761. Okay, that's on.
Oh yeah,
go pull.
Yeah, we had the same thing. And the coaches would just throw them in the bin. They would never put them back where they belong. So you'd go in there. It's like going to the library trying to find a tape. It's a nightmare.
So you go in there and do all your other stuff. Yeah, DJ, that was man, those were the good old days.
Yeah, we're old. That's all we're saying is we're old. All right. Hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. This has been fun. We love hanging with you guys here. We'll see you on Monday to recap a fun weekend of championship college football as well as a big NFL weekend. We'll see you right here on Move the Sticks.